Have you ever seen a bird so exotic it looks like it flew straight out of a fantasy movie? I'm talking neon feathers, crazy hairstyles, and hunting tricks that seem more like science fiction than nature. Welcome to Most Exotic Birds in the World, 30 stunning species you won't believe exist, from the sacred resplendent Quetzal of Central America to the clown-faced Atlantic puffin, all the way to the fearsome Philippine eagle. These are birds you'll have to see to believe. Some of them are dazzling rainbows, others are downright bizarre, and a few might even creep you out. But every single one is unforgettable. And here's the challenge. Try to guess which bird lands at number 30. It's so strange it might just break your idea of what a bird can be. Drop your guess in the comments before we get there and see if you're right. So buckle up, because we're about to travel across jungles, mountains, islands, and wetlands to meet the world's most exotic winged wonders. Let's get started. What bird is so dazzling that ancient civilizations worshipped it as a god, and modern travelers hike through rain-soaked jungles just for a 5-second glimpse? That's the resplendent Quetzal, a bird so exotic it makes a peacock look like a pigeon. Here's the stakes. This bird isn't just beautiful, it's sacred. For the Maya and Aztec, the Quetzal's shimmering green tail feathers symbolized freedom and immortality. Killing one was forbidden. Without this reverence, the Quetzal might have vanished centuries ago. Today, it's still endangered. Habitat loss and hunting threaten its survival in the cloud forests of Central America. Picture the scene: dawn in the misty mountains of Costa Rica. Sunlight filters through dripping moss, and suddenly, a flash of emerald and crimson cuts across the canopy. A male Quetzal, its feathers glowing like liquid jade, perches quietly on a branch. Then you see it, the tail. Flowing streamers up to 3 feet long sway behind him like a royal banner. When he flies, it's like a ribbon of green fire trailing through the forest. Fun fact, Quetzals are picky eaters with a sweet tooth. Their favorite snack? Avocados. They swallow the fruit whole and spit out the seed, helping forests regenerate. So not only are they stunning, they're also gardeners of the jungle, and their name lives on. Guatemala's currency is called the Quetzal, a tribute to this legendary bird. So the resplendent Quetzal isn't just exotic, it's a living jewel, a cultural icon, and a reminder that beauty can be powerful enough to shape history. And if you think this glowing green legend is colorful, just wait. Our next bird is louder, flashier, and bigger than life. An Amazon giant that can shout its presence before you even see it. Coming up, the scarlet macaw. What bird is so loud, so colorful, and so full of personality that you'll probably hear it before you see it? That's the scarlet macaw, one of the most exotic parrots in the world and a living rainbow of Central and South America. Here's the stakes. In the rainforest, standing out can be dangerous. A scarlet red body with wings painted in blue, yellow, and green makes you easy to spot. Without razor-sharp intelligence and strong social bonds, scarlet macaws would be an easy target for predators and poachers. Sadly, illegal pet trade has already put pressure on their wild populations. Picture the scene: the Amazon canopy at sunrise. The air is humid, insects are buzzing, and then, screech! A pair of scarlet macaws explodes out of the trees like fireworks. Their wings flash gold and cobalt as they soar in perfect harmony. They land high on a branch, nuzzling each other, chattering nonstop in voices that sound more like a rowdy crowd at a party than two birds. Fun fact, scarlet macaws mate for life, forming partnerships that can last decades. They also live astonishingly long, up to 50 years in the wild, and even longer in captivity. And they're brainy too. Macaws have been seen using tools, solving puzzles, and even mimicking human speech. In fact, their intelligence is one reason they've been so sought after as pets. Culturally, scarlet macaws were treasured by ancient civilizations. The Maya and Aztec prized their feathers for ceremonial headdresses, and their vibrant colors were considered symbols of power in the sun. Even today, seeing one in flight feels like watching a living piece of art streak across the sky. So while they may be noisy, demanding, and occasionally bossy, scarlet macaws embody everything exotic should mean: bold, brilliant, and unforgettable. And if you thought a rainbow-colored parrot was stunning, just wait until you meet our next bird, a feathered paintbrush that looks like it dipped itself into every color on the palette. Up next, the rainbow lorikeet. What bird looks like it crash-landed in a paint store and walked out wearing every color of the rainbow? That's the rainbow lorikeet, one of the most flamboyant and exotic parrots in the world. Here's the stakes. In the wild, standing out can be risky. A body splashed with neon green, electric blue, fiery orange, and sunshine yellow makes hiding almost impossible. Without speed, agility, and sharp instincts, this bird would be a walking target. Instead, it thrives, because when you look this good, you also play smart. Picture the scene: a coastal forest in Australia. Eucalyptus trees sway in the breeze, and suddenly a riot of color bursts through the branches. A flock of rainbow lorikeets screeches overhead, landing in a tree blooming with red flowers. They hang upside down like acrobats, plunging their brush-tipped tongues into blossoms to sip nectar. It's messy, loud, and absolutely spectacular. Fun fact: lorikeets have specialized tongues covered in tiny hair-like papillae that work like a paintbrush. This lets them lap up nectar and pollen that most other birds can't reach. In Greece, you might not spot them, but across zoos and aviaries worldwide, these birds have become stars thanks to their playful personalities and non-stop chatter. And here's another twist. Rainbow lorikeets are pranksters, known to chase each other, squabble loudly, and even harass bigger birds. They bring chaos wherever they go. In Australia, they're so common in cities that some people joke they're party parrots, crashing backyard gardens and raiding fruit trees in big noisy gangs. So while they might be tiny troublemakers, rainbow lorikeets are also one of nature's most exotic masterpieces. Living proof that sometimes more color really is better. And if you think a rainbow on wings is impressive, just wait. Our next bird is small, shy, and painted in wild blues, reds, and greens. So beautiful it's been called the most colorful little songbird in North America. Up next, the painted bunting. What bird looks so unreal that people often mistake it for an escaped tropical pet? That's the painted bunting, a tiny North American songbird that wears every crayon in the box. Here's the stakes. In nature, being flashy can be dangerous. With a head as blue as the summer sky, a chest blazing red, and wings splashed green and yellow, the painted bunting stands out like a neon sign. Without sharp awareness and quick flight, this little bird would be an easy snack for predators. Its survival depends on agility and staying just out of reach. Picture the scene: a quiet backyard in the southeastern United States. A bird feeder hangs from a tree, and suddenly, bam, a painted bunting appears. The male looks like a living rainbow, perching nervously before darting down for seeds. The female, by contrast, wears olive green feathers, blending perfectly with the leaves. She might not get the wow factor, but her camouflage is her superpower. Together, they balance beauty and survival. Fun fact: bird lovers call the painted bunting the nonpareil, a French word meaning without equal. And once you see one, you'll understand why. Their songs are just as delightful, bright rolling notes that bring music to fields and gardens. Sadly, their beauty has also made them targets for the illegal pet trade, especially in Mexico and Central America. Culturally, spotting a painted bunting is considered a lucky moment since they're shy and often hide in dense shrubs. Many birdwatchers spend years hoping to catch that perfect glimpse of a male glowing in the sunlight. So while they might be small, painted buntings prove that sometimes the brightest treasures come in the tiniest packages. And if you're dazzled by this rainbow songbird, hold on. The next bird takes exotic color to new heights, literally. Get ready for the sky acrobat with lilac wings and a pink chest, the lilac-breasted roller. What bird looks like it flew straight out of a dream, dipped in every pastel color imaginable, and then decided to perform acrobatics in the sky? That's the lilac-breasted roller, a true showstopper of the African savannas. Here's the stakes. On the open plains, there's nowhere to hide. If you're small and colorful, predators see you coming from a mile away. The roller survives not by hiding, but by flying like a daredevil. fast, agile, and fearless. Without those moves, its dazzling plumage would be a dangerous liability. Picture the scene. Dawn breaks over the Serengeti. Herds of zebras graze quietly, and suddenly a flash of color explodes across the horizon. A lilac-breasted roller swoops into view, wings flashing turquoise, cobalt, and emerald. Its chest glows with soft lilac, its belly a warm orange. Then, without warning, it performs a series of wild dives and rolls, twisting through the air as if showing off for an invisible audience. No wonder it's called a roller fun fact. These acrobatic displays aren't just for fun. Rollers perform them during courtship, impressing potential mates with their aerial stunts. And here's a twist. Despite their beauty, their call is surprisingly harsh, a kind of growling rack-rack that sounds more like a crow than a songbird. Beauty on the outside, business on the inside. Culturally, the lilac-breasted roller is considered a national treasure. In fact, it's the national bird of Botswana and beloved across Africa. Safari guides often stop their jeeps just to let travelers snap photos because no trip feels complete without seeing this living rainbow in flight. So the lilac-breasted roller isn't just exotic, it's a combination of color, courage, and sky-high performance art. And if you thought this flying jewel was impressive, wait until you see our next bird. With golden feathers and a regal look, it's like nature's own crowned emperor, the golden pheasant. What bird looks like it walks straight out of a royal palace wearing a golden cape, fiery red robes, and an orange and black striped scarf? That's the golden pheasant, one of the most dazzling and exotic pheasants on Earth. Here's the stakes. In the forests of Western China, survival means blending in. But the golden pheasant does the exact opposite. With colors that scream, "Look at me," males put themselves at risk of predators. Without sharp instincts, speed, and powerful wings, this living rainbow would be an easy target. Picture the scene. Deep in a bamboo thicket, sunlight filters through the leaves. Suddenly, a flash of gold and crimson streaks past. A male golden pheasant struts proudly into a clearing, raising his cape-like golden crest over his neck like a crown. He circles a female, fanning his long tail feathers, performing a slow-motion dance fit for an emperor. The forest may be full of dangers, but in this moment, he's nothing short of majestic. Fun fact, despite their exotic looks, golden pheasants are surprisingly poor flyers. They prefer to run through the undergrowth and only take off when absolutely necessary, usually in a noisy, clumsy burst of wings. And while the males are royalty in appearance, the females wear drab brown feathers, perfectly camouflaged to protect their chicks. Culturally, the golden pheasant has been celebrated in Chinese art and folklore for centuries, symbolizing good fortune, beauty, and prosperity. In fact, some scholars believe its golden crest may have inspired designs in traditional Chinese clothing and even dragon imagery. So while the golden pheasant may look like it's ready to sit on a throne, it's really a forest dweller with a flair for fashion and drama. And if you thought golden robes were exotic, wait until you see our next bird. A little tanager painted in neon blues, greens, and reds like nature's own graffiti artist. Up next, the paradise tanager. What bird looks like it was painted by a graffiti artist who couldn't decide which color to use, so they used them all? That's the paradise tanager, a small South American songbird that wears more shades than a box of crayons. Here's the stakes. In the dense Amazon rainforest, light is dim and predators are everywhere. Most birds hide in camouflage. The paradise tanager does the opposite, flaunting neon colors like a flying jewel. Without the safety of its flock and its lightning-fast movements, such bright feathers would be a recipe for disaster. Picture the scene. You're drifting down an Amazon river at sunrise. Mist curls off the water, monkeys chatter in the treetops, and suddenly, bam! A flock of paradise tanagers explodes from the canopy. Their feathers flash lime green, turquoise, indigo, and cherry red. It's like watching a rainbow break apart and scatter into the forest. Fun fact, despite their wild colors, paradise tanagers have surprisingly gentle voices, a soft, twittering call that contrasts with their extreme fashion sense. They travel in mixed flocks with other bird species, darting through the upper canopy to feed on fruit and insects. Think of them as the social butterflies of the bird world, always mingling, always moving. And here's another twist. Their exact color patterns can vary depending on where they live. Some have sky blue bellies, others glow with deeper greens. It's as if every region of the Amazon has its own edition of this bird. So the paradise tanager may be small, but it proves that nature doesn't need to follow any design rules. Why settle for one color when you can wear them all? And speaking of bold colors, our next bird takes flashy to another level. With a throat that literally glows like fire, meet the blazing little jewel of Central America, the fiery-throated hummingbird. What bird looks like it swallowed a flame and decided to wear it on its chest? That's the fiery-throated hummingbird, a tiny powerhouse from the highlands of Costa Rica and Panama that glitters like living fire. Here's the stakes. Life in the mountains is tough. Cold nights, thin air, and fierce competition for nectar mean only the strongest survive. Without its insane metabolism and constant energy, this little jewel would burn out fast. To stay alive, it drinks nectar from hundreds of flowers every single day. Picture the scene, the cloud forests of Costa Rica. Mist curls through the trees as sunlight breaks through, hitting a tiny bird hovering in midair. Suddenly its throat ignites, flashing gold, red, and orange like molten lava. A second later, it shifts in the light and glows emerald green, then sapphire blue. Every tilt of its head creates a new explosion of color. It's like holding a gemstone that changes with every move. Fun fact, hummingbirds are the only birds that can hover in place, fly backward, and even upside down for short bursts. The fiery-throated hummingbird beats its wings up to 80 times per second, burning calories so fast its heart rate can spike to 1,200 beats a minute. That's like a Ferrari engine packed into a bird the size of your thumb. And here's the twist. At night, when flowers close and food disappears, this bird lowers its body temperature and enters a state called torpor, a kind of mini hibernation that saves its life until morning. So while the fiery-throated hummingbird may be small, it's one of the most exotic survival machines on the planet. Proof that fire can come in feathered form. And if you thought this little flame was impressive, wait until you see its cousin in purple velvet, bigger, bolder, and just as dazzling. Up next, the violet saber-winged hummingbird. What bird looks like it's dressed for a royal ball, shimmering in deep violet with wings sharp as blades? That's the violet saber-wing, one of the largest and most striking hummingbirds in the world. Here's the stakes. For a hummingbird, size is a gamble. Bigger wings mean more power, but also more energy burned. Without the right balance of strength and speed, the violet saber-wing wouldn't survive in the competitive world of tropical hummingbirds. Picture the scene, a misty mountain garden in Central America. Bright flowers dangle from vines and then, whoosh, a large hummingbird zooms in, wings buzzing like a tiny helicopter. Its body flashes with iridescent violet, shifting to sapphire and emerald under the light. When it hovers, it's not dainty like other hummingbirds. It's bold, confident, almost regal. Then with a sudden dart, it drives off smaller hummingbirds, claiming the nectar for itself. This isn't just a jewel, it's a jewel with an attitude. Fun fact, the name saberwing comes from the male's outer flight feathers, which curve like little sabers. And unlike many hummingbirds, violet saberwings often perch between feeding bouts, giving birdwatchers a rare chance to admire their full royal glow. At up to 6 inches long, they're giants in the hummingbird world, twice the size of most of their relatives. And here's a twist. Despite their flashy looks, these birds play an important ecological role. By moving from flower to flower, they're expert pollinators, keeping tropical forests alive and blooming. In a way, they're not just wearing nature's crown, they're helping maintain it. So the violet saberwing is more than a pretty face. It's proof that sometimes bigger is better, especially when you can wear violet like velvet and guard your territory like a warrior. And if you think purple royalty is exotic, just wait until you meet our next bird. It may not glow like a gem, but with its clownish beak and adorable looks, it's one of the most beloved seabirds on Earth. The Atlantic puffin. What bird looks like a mix between a penguin and a clown, waddles like it's late for work, and somehow still manages to be one of the cutest seabirds in the world? That's the Atlantic puffin, nicknamed the clown of the sea. Here's the stakes. Puffins spend most of their lives out on the rough North Atlantic. Storms, predators, and food shortages are constant threats. Without incredible endurance and clever fishing skills, this funny-looking bird wouldn't survive. Picture the scene. A steep, grassy cliff in Iceland. Waves crash below, and thousands of puffins flap in from the ocean, their bright orange beaks glowing like neon signs. One lands awkwardly, wings flapping, then hops to its burrow. Moments later, it pops out carrying a mouthful of tiny fish, sometimes more than 10 at once, all neatly lined up like silver toothpicks. No shopping bag needed. That beak is nature's grocery basket. Fun fact, puffins are fantastic divers, using their wings to fly underwater, chasing fish at depths of up to 200 feet. And while they may look clumsy on land, in the air they can beat their wings up to 400 times a minute, zipping along at nearly 55 miles per hour. Not bad for a bird that looks like it should be starring in a cartoon. And here's another twist. Puffins mate for life. Every summer they reunite at the same nesting spot, gently tap their beaks together, a behavior called billing that looks exactly like they're kissing. It's so charming that locals often call them symbols of loyalty and love. So while the Atlantic puffin may not wear shimmering rainbows like other exotic birds, it wins hearts with its goofy charm, super-powered beak, and ocean survival skills. And after this clown of the sea, we're heading back to pure color explosion. Meet the insect-hunting acrobat of Europe, the European bee-eater. What bird wears the colors of a tropical rainbow, yet hunts like a precision fighter jet? That's the European bee-eater, a flashy little predator that brings exotic flair to the skies of Europe and beyond. Here's the stakes. Catching insects in midair isn't easy. Miss too many times and you go hungry. And when your favorite food is bees, stingers included, you'd better have some serious skills. Without its lightning reflexes and clever tricks, the bee-eater would never survive. Picture the scene, a summer afternoon in southern Europe. Fields buzz with bees and dragonflies, and suddenly a streak of turquoise and chestnut flashes overhead. The European bee-eater swoops gracefully, snatches a bee, and lands on a perch. Then with a quick flick, it smacks the bee against the branch to remove the stinger before swallowing it whole. Dinner and a show. Fun fact, bee-eaters are social birds. They nest in colonies, digging tunnels into sandy riverbanks where dozens of families live side by side. Their calls, rolling, musical, purr notes, fill the air like a chorus. And because they eat bees and wasps, they're also popular with farmers, who see them as natural pest control. And here's a twist. Despite being native to Europe, bee-eaters look so tropical that many first-time birdwatchers assume they escaped from a pet store. But no, they're wild, migratory, and travel thousands of miles to Africa for the winter, returning to Europe each spring like feathered tourists. So the European bee-eater isn't just exotic. It's elegant, resourceful, and fearless enough to eat creatures armed with stingers. And if you think one bee-eater is colorful, wait until you see its cousin, just as dazzling, but with even brighter shades. Up next, the rainbow bee-eater. What bird looks like it was painted with neon highlighters and still has the nerve to snack on stinging insects for a living? That's the rainbow bee-eater, a feathered firework from Australia and Southeast Asia. Here's the stakes. When your favorite meal is bees, wasps, and hornets, one wrong move could mean a painful sting. Or worse, without its daring aerial skills and clever stinger removal trick, the rainbow bee-eater wouldn't last a week. Picture the scene. An open field under the hot Australian sun. Suddenly, a flash of emerald green and golden orange streaks across the sky. The rainbow bee-eater hovers, twists, then dives, snatching a wasp right out of the air. It perches on a branch, whacks the insect against it a few times to disarm the stinger, then gulps it down like a pro. Moments later, it's back in the air, chasing its next target with acrobatic rolls that would make a fighter pilot jealous. Fun fact, rainbow bee eaters are devoted family birds. Not only do pairs dig deep tunnels and sandy banks for their nests, but sometimes siblings from previous years stick around to help raise the new chicks. It's like a feathered family business. Everyone pitches in. And here's a twist. While many birds migrate at night, rainbow bee eaters take it a step further. They can travel thousands of miles across open water, flying in flocks that turn the evening sky into a swirl of shimmering greens and oranges. So the rainbow bee eater is more than just a pretty face. It's a high-speed hunter, a skilled family builder, and a living rainbow that makes the skies of Australia and Asia sparkle. And if you thought a rainbow on wings was impressive, just wait until you meet the next bird. With a beak dipped in sapphire and orange, it's one of the most iconic hunters of rivers and lakes, the common kingfisher. What bird looks like it was carved out of a sapphire and then set on fire with a splash of orange? That's the common kingfisher, a tiny but fierce hunter found along rivers and lakes from Europe to Asia. Here's the stakes. Fishing is a dangerous game when you weigh less than 2 ounces. A bad dive could break a wing or leave you soaked and grounded. Without perfect aim and split-second timing, the kingfisher wouldn't survive a day. Picture the scene, a quiet Greek riverbank at dawn. The water is smooth as glass when suddenly, zip, a flash of turquoise streaks past your eyes. The kingfisher hovers for a split second, then plunges headfirst into the water. A splash, a shimmer, and it bursts back into the air with a wriggling fish clamped tightly in its dagger-like bill. It flies to a perch, smacks the fish against the branch to stun it, and then gulp down the hatch. Fun fact, the kingfisher's colors aren't from pigments, but from microscopic structures in its feathers that bend and scatter light. That's why its blue shines so intensely, like a gemstone catching the sun. And despite their beauty, kingfishers are fiercely territorial, sometimes fighting so violently that rivals don't survive the encounter. And here's a twist. In many cultures, kingfishers are symbols of peace and prosperity. The ancient Greeks believed that calm seas during midwinter, the halcyon days, were created by nesting kingfishers. Even today, spotting one is considered a lucky omen. So the common kingfisher may be small, but it's a jewel, a legend, and a reminder that sometimes the fiercest hunters come in the tiniest packages. And if you thought a sapphire and orange fisherman was exotic, wait until you meet our next bird. Blue, bold, and loud enough to run an entire forest neighborhood. Up next, the blue jay. What bird struts around the forest like it owns the place, shouts louder than your alarm clock, and still manages to look like it's dressed in royal blue? That's the blue jay, one of North America's boldest and most exotic backyard birds. Here's the stakes. Life in the forest isn't just about looking pretty. Predators, rival birds, and hungry mouths all compete for resources. Without brains and bravery, the blue jay's bright blue feathers would make it an easy target. Instead, it thrives by being smart, loud, and fiercely social. Picture the scene, a quiet woodland morning. Cardinals sing sweetly, robins hop in the grass, and suddenly, Jay, a flash of cobalt wings swoops in. The blue jay lands on a branch, crest raised like a crown, and immediately takes charge. It chases off a squirrel, bullies a smaller bird from the feeder, and then calls out an alarm that sounds suspiciously like a hawk. Other birds panic and scatter. Mission accomplished. The peanuts are all his. Fun fact, blue jays are excellent mimics. They can copy the calls of hawks so convincingly that they fool entire flocks into fleeing. And they're clever planners too. Jays are known to stash acorns all over the forest, often forgetting some, which later sprout into oak trees. In a way, they're noisy little gardeners, helping shape entire ecosystems. And here's another twist. For all their bossy antics, blue jays are devoted family birds. Pairs mate for life, and both parents fiercely protect their chicks. Their raucous calls might annoy people, but in the bird world, that kind of teamwork is pure survival. So while the blue jay may be a bit of a troublemaker, it's also a brainy, beautiful bird with a knack for running the neighborhood. And if you thought bold blue was exotic, just wait. Our next bird is small, sweet, and bright orange-red, a garden favorite that charms hearts across Europe, the European robin. What bird is so small and sweet-looking that it's become the face of Christmas cards, yet bold enough to defend its territory like a tiny warrior? That's the European robin, a feathered favorite that charms its way into gardens and folklore alike. Here's the stakes. Being tiny in a world full of predators isn't easy. Without quick reflexes and a strong voice, the robin's bright orange-red breast would make it a perfect target. Instead, it survives by being fiercely territorial and endlessly adaptable, proving that cuteness can hide a tough streak. Picture the scene: a misty morning in a Greek olive grove. Sunlight filters through the branches, and there, perched on a low twig, is a robin. It tilts its head, fluffs its feathers, and lets out a series of sweet, silvery notes. Suddenly, another robin hops too close. Instantly, the mood shifts. Wings flare, voices rise, and this little bird defends its patch like it owns the whole grove. Never underestimate a creature the size of your fist. Fun fact: European robins are year-round singers. Unlike most birds that fall silent after breeding season, robins keep singing through winter, filling cold mornings with their bright, fluting song. And in folklore, they're often seen as messengers of good luck, or even as symbols of departed loved ones returning to visit. And here's a twist. While many people see robins as friendly garden companions, in the bird world, they're actually quite aggressive. Males sometimes fight to the death over territory. So yes, they're cute, but they're also little feathered gladiators. So the European robin is more than just a pretty face. It's a mix of charm, toughness, and song. A small bird with a surprisingly big personality. And if you thought red and cute was exotic, wait until you see the next bird. Bigger, bolder, and blazing with scarlet feathers. Coming up, the northern cardinal. What bird looks like it's wearing a crimson tuxedo, sings like a flute, and is so striking that people stop in their tracks just to watch it? That's the northern cardinal, one of the most beloved and most exotic-looking backyard birds in North America. Here's the stakes. Bright red may win hearts, but it also screams, "Here I am," to predators. Without vigilance, speed, and strong wings, a male cardinal's blazing plumage would make him an easy meal. Yet he survives and thrives, thanks to sharp instincts and an attitude that matches his color. Picture the scene: a snowy morning in the eastern United States. The world is white, silent, and still. Suddenly, a flash of red bursts through the trees. A male cardinal perches on a branch, his crest raised like a royal crown. He lets out a loud, clear whistle, "Cheer, cheer, cheer," that carries across the cold air. Nearby, his mate, dressed in soft, elegant brown with touches of red, hops along, proving that cardinals aren't just about beauty, but also about partnership. Fun fact: cardinals are one of the few bird species where females sing as well as males. And they don't just sing for fun. Female cardinals often sing from the nest to communicate with their mates about food and territory. That duet makes them a symbol of harmony and lasting love. And here's a twist. Because of their beauty and song, cardinals are the state bird of 7 U.S. states, more than any other species. They've become cultural icons, showing up in sports teams, art, and folklore as symbols of vitality and hope. So the northern cardinal isn't just a burst of red in winter. It's a symbol of resilience, love, and music in the natural world. And if you thought this crimson singer was charming, wait until you meet our next bird, a silky, soft beauty with a sweet tooth for berries and a voice like a choir. Up next, the Bohemian waxwing. What bird looks like it just stepped out of a high-end fashion magazine with silky feathers, a swept-back crest, and wingtips dipped in red wax? That's the Bohemian waxwing, a winter nomad with style to spare. Here's the stakes. Winter in the northern forests is brutal. Food vanishes under the snow, temperatures drop below freezing, and survival depends on one thing: finding berries. Without their nomadic lifestyle and flocking behavior, waxwings wouldn't make it through the cold season. Picture the scene: a snowy village in Scandinavia. The trees are bare except for clusters of bright red berries hanging on frosty branches. Then, like a quiet storm, a flock of waxwings swoops in. They perch shoulder to shoulder, hundreds at a time, plucking berries and passing them down the line like a conveyor belt. Their soft, gray-brown plumage glows against the snow, crests tipped with elegance, wings flashing tiny seals of crimson and yellow. It's a birdwatcher's dream come true. Fun fact, Bohemian waxwings are such berry fanatics that they sometimes eat fermented ones and end up tipsy. Imagine a flock of silky, refined-looking birds wobbling around after a berry happy hour. It's a reminder that even the classiest species can have a wild side. And here's another twist. Unlike most songbirds, waxwings don't sing elaborate tunes. Instead, they make soft, high-pitched trills that sound like tiny bells ringing in the winter air. It's delicate, haunting, and fits their mysterious aura perfectly. So the Bohemian waxwing may not belt out an aria, but it's a bird of elegance, wanderlust, and survival. Proof that winter can be beautiful if you know how to dress for it. And if you thought silk and berries were exotic, just wait until you see our next bird. One that climbs cliffs like a butterfly, flashing scarlet wings against gray stone. Up next, the wall creeper. What bird can turn a gray cliff face into a moving painting, fluttering like a butterfly with wings dipped in scarlet? That's the wall creeper, a rare alpine bird that looks more like a mountain spirit than an ordinary songbird. Here's the stakes. When you live in vertical stone worlds, sheer cliffs, gorges, and mountain walls, you can't afford mistakes. A slip means death. Without specialized claws, wings strong enough to hover, and the ability to find insects in impossible cracks, the wall creeper would never survive. Picture the scene. The rocky cliffs of Meteora in Greece. Monasteries cling to stone pillars, and high above, something small flickers against the gray wall. At first you think it's a butterfly, but then you notice the thin curved bill, the slate gray body, and those flashing crimson wings. The wall creeper moves up and sideways with delicate hops, probing crevices for spiders and insects, then suddenly flutters in midair, painting streaks of red across the stone. Watching one feels like witnessing a hidden performance choreographed by nature itself. Fun fact, despite their beauty, wall creepers are hard to find. They live high in the mountains during summer, but in winter they sometimes descend to cities, even clinging to cathedral walls in Europe. Imagine walking to work and suddenly spotting a bird that looks like a butterfly dipped in fire, dancing across a stone church. It's an unforgettable sight. And here's a twist. Wall creepers have inspired poets and birdwatchers alike because they seem out of place in the bird world. They're not flashy like parrots, not massive like eagles, but something in between. Delicate, mysterious, and yet supremely tough. It's no wonder some call them flying rubies of the mountains. So the wall creeper proves that exotic beauty isn't only found in jungles or rainbows. Sometimes it's a small gray bird turning bare rock into living art. And if you thought crimson wings against stone were exotic, wait until you see our next bird. It doesn't just wear red, it's completely drenched in it, a blazing flame that fills the sky in flocks. Up next, the scarlet ibis. What bird looks like it was dipped head to toe in bright red paint and then set loose across the sky? That's the scarlet ibis, one of the most stunning and exotic wading birds in the world. Here's the stakes. In sprawling wetlands and muddy mangroves, blending in helps you survive. But the scarlet ibis does the opposite. Its blazing crimson feathers make it stand out like a fire in the marsh. Without large flocks for safety and strong feeding strategies, this walking flame would be an easy target. Picture the scene, a tropical lagoon in South America. The sun sets, painting the water gold. Suddenly, across the horizon, a flock of scarlet shapes rises into the air. Dozens, then hundreds, flap in unison, glowing like embers drifting upward. They settle into the trees, and for a moment, the whole mangrove burns with living red. It's one of the most breathtaking bird spectacles on Earth. Fun fact, that fiery color doesn't come naturally. Scarlet ibises are actually born grayish-brown. Their brilliant red plumage comes from carotenoid pigments in their diet, mainly crabs and crustaceans. The more they eat, the redder they get, making diet their own built-in paintbrush. And here's another twist. Despite looking exotic and fragile, Scarlet ibises are tough survivors. They wade through muddy shallows with their long, curved bills, probing for insects, mollusks, and shrimp. And when danger threatens, they rely on the power of the flock. Thousands may roost together at night, turning treetops into glowing scarlet clouds. Culturally, the scarlet ibis is so iconic that it's the national bird of Trinidad and Tobago. For locals, it symbolizes vibrancy and resilience, qualities that fit perfectly with its fiery look. So the scarlet ibis isn't just a splash of color, it's proof that nature sometimes chooses boldness over camouflage, turning marshes and mangroves into galleries of living art. And if you think red is shocking, wait until you hear our next bird. It's not just about looks, it's about sound. With a bizarre voice that sounds more like a buzzsaw than a songbird, meet the strange and unforgettable capuchin bird. What bird looks like it's wearing a monk's robe, but sounds like a chainsaw crossed with a cow? That's the capuchin bird, one of the strangest and most exotic songbirds of the Amazon. Here's the stakes. In dense tropical forests, sound is everything. Mates can't always see each other, so birds rely on calls to attract partners. But in a world filled with competing songs, the capuchin bird needed a way to stand out. Without its bizarre voice, this plain-looking brown bird would disappear into the crowd. Picture the scene. Deep in the Amazon canopy, green leaves filter the light, macaws scream overhead, and then an eerie noise cuts through the forest. It starts low and buzzing, then rises into a groaning wah that echoes for miles. You expect to see a giant animal. Instead, a medium-sized bird with cinnamon brown feathers and a bald bluish-gray head perches proudly on a branch, calling again like a forest foghorn. Meet the capuchin bird, the monk who traded chance for heavy machinery. Fun fact, the name capuchin bird comes from its cloak-like feathers, which resemble the robes of Capuchin monks. But its call is the real showstopper. Birdwatchers often describe it as one of the weirdest sounds in the bird world, something between a cow mooing, a vacuum cleaner, and a didgeridoo. And despite the strange noise, females find it irresistible. And here's a twist. These birds gather in communal display sites called leks, where multiple males show off their voices at once. Imagine a chorus of chainsaws echoing through the forest, each bird trying to outgrown the other. It's bizarre, hilarious, and strangely mesmerizing. So the capuchin bird proves that exotic doesn't always mean glamorous colors or glittering feathers. Sometimes it's about being unforgettable. And in this case, unforgettable means sounding like the jungle's strangest rock concert. And if you thought this Amazon monk was odd, wait until you meet our next bird. It's got the size of an eagle, the hairdo of a rock star, and the title of the rarest raptor in the world, the Philippine eagle. What bird wears a shaggy crown of feathers, stares with piercing eyes, and is so powerful it's nicknamed the monkey-eating eagle? That's the Philippine eagle, one of the largest, rarest, and most exotic raptors on the planet. Here's the stakes. Living in the dense rainforests of the Philippines, this eagle is both a hunter and a survivor, but it's also critically endangered. With fewer than 1,000 left in the wild, its entire future hangs by a thread. Without protection, this feathered giant could vanish within our lifetime. Picture the scene, misty treetops of Mindanao at dawn. The jungle hums with cicadas, then suddenly falls silent. A massive shadow glides between the trees. The Philippine eagle swoops down, its 2-meter wingspan slicing the air. Its talons, large enough to crush a monkey's skull, grip a branch as it scans the forest floor. With its wild mane of brown and white feathers blowing in the breeze, it looks less like a bird and more like a myth come alive. Fun fact, despite the nickname, Philippine eagles don't only eat monkeys. Their menu includes flying lemurs, snakes, civets, and even other birds. They're apex predators, meaning nothing hunts them, except humans. Sadly, deforestation and hunting have pushed them to the brink. Here's a twist. These eagles are hopeless romantics. They mate for life, raising just one chick every 2 years. Parents take turns hunting while the other guards the nest. That slow reproduction is part of why they're so vulnerable. Losing even a few individuals has a huge impact on the population. So the Philippine eagle isn't just exotic. It's a living symbol of power, resilience, and fragility all at once. Protecting it isn't just about saving a bird. It's about preserving an entire ecosystem. And if you thought a crowned eagle the size of a small human was exotic, wait until you meet our next bird. It's a pigeon, but not the kind you see in cities. With iridescent feathers that shimmer like oil on water, meet the Nicobar pigeon. What if I told you that one of the most exotic pigeons in the world doesn't live in city squares, but on remote tropical islands, shimmering in metallic greens, bronzes, and blues? Meet the Nicobar pigeon, a bird so dazzling it makes its gray city cousins look like they never dressed up for the party. Here's the stakes. Life on small islands in Southeast Asia is no joke. Food can run scarce, storms sweep in without warning, and predators lurk in the forests. Without strong wings and tight-knit flocks, the Nicobar pigeon wouldn't survive across its scattered island homes. Picture the scene. On a sunlit beach of the Nicobar Islands, waves crash gently while palms sway overhead. A group of pigeons struts confidently along the sand, not drab gray, but radiant like gemstones. Their long, glossy neck feathers flow like a cape in the breeze, flashing emerald, copper, and sapphire as they move. With glowing red eyes and pure white tails, they look more like mythical creatures than everyday pigeons. Fun fact, Nicobar pigeons are believed to be the closest living relatives of the extinct dodo. That's right, this shimmering beauty carries the legacy of one of the most famous lost birds in history. Another quirky detail? Unlike most pigeons, they swallow small stones to help grind tough seeds in their stomachs, turning their digestive system into nature's food processor. And here's a twist. Because of their striking feathers, they've been hunted and trapped for trade, making them vulnerable. Today, conservationists are working to protect their island habitats, because losing the Nicobar pigeon would mean erasing one of nature's most glamorous links to the past. So the Nicobar pigeon proves pigeons don't have to be plain. They can be exotic, mysterious, and even carry echoes of extinct legends. And if you thought a pigeon could surprise you, wait until you see our next bird. It's practically a living jewel box, tiny, electric, and shimmering with every color of the rainbow, the painted bunting. What bird looks like it was painted by a Renaissance artist, dipped in gold, purple, and copper, then set afloat on a quiet pond? That's the mandarin duck, a living watercolor and one of the most stunning ducks on the planet. Here's the stakes. Beauty can be a blessing and a burden. In nature, being this colorful is like wearing a neon sign that says, "Eat me." But somehow the mandarin duck survives. It thrives across East Asia, where harsh winters and hungry predators are constant threats. Without agility, clever instincts, and a dash of good luck, even this jewel of the water wouldn't stand a chance. Picture the scene. Early morning mist drifts across a still lake in Japan. The surface ripples and suddenly, there he is. A male mandarin duck glides through the fog like a floating painting. His plumage bursts with color, amber sails on his back, blue and green highlights on his wings, and a white crescent that gleams like moonlight across his face. Next to him, the female, soft brown, subtle, elegant, watches quietly. She may not steal the spotlight, but her camouflage is what keeps their family safe. Fun fact, in many Asian cultures, mandarin ducks are the ultimate symbol of love and fidelity. Pairs mate for life and are so inseparable that they're given as wedding gifts to represent eternal harmony. In China and Japan, ancient poets called them the lovebirds of water. Even today, sculptures and paintings of them appear in homes to bless marriages with happiness. Here's a twist. Despite their fame, mandarin ducks are surprisingly adaptable. They've spread far beyond Asia, now nesting in parks and ponds across Europe, and even the US, a touch of oriental beauty in the Western world. Seeing one in the wild feels like spotting a painting that suddenly decided to move. So the mandarin duck isn't just a bird. It's a symbol of love, balance, and living art. A reminder that beauty can be both bold and gentle, fleeting and eternal. And if you thought color was captivating, wait until you see what happens when nature removes it entirely. Coming up next, a ghostly hunter cloaked in white, born of Arctic winds, the snowy owl. What bird looks like it was sculpted from pure snow and brought to life by Arctic winds? That's the snowy owl, one of the most breathtaking and mysterious birds on Earth. Here's the stakes. Life in the frozen tundra is brutal. Temperatures drop below -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Food is scarce, and predators lurk everywhere. Without its silent wings, thick plumage, and razor-sharp vision, this ghost of the North wouldn't stand a chance. Picture the scene, a vast, white landscape in the Arctic. The sun hangs low and the wind howls across endless snowdrifts. Suddenly, a shape moves, a flash of white against white. The snowy owl glides low over the tundra, wings wide and silent. It spots movement below, dives without a sound, and rises with a lemming clutched in its talons. Then it lands on a snowbank, unblinking yellow eyes staring straight into the icy horizon. Majestic, cold, perfectly built for survival. Fun fact, unlike most owls, snowy owls are active during the day. In the Arctic's endless summer light, they hunt under a bright sun. Their camouflage so perfect that even prey barely sees them coming. And here's something incredible. When food is plentiful, they can eat up to 1,600 lemmings in a year. That's one very efficient pest control service. Another twist, female snowy owls are larger and darker than males, who become almost completely white as they age. So when you see an owl that looks like a flying snowball, it's probably a wise old male showing off his winter coat. The snowy owl is a symbol of endurance, mystery, and the quiet power of nature. From the Arctic tundra to the open fields of North America, where some migrate in winter, it never fails to capture hearts and imaginations. And if you thought this Arctic ghost was elegant, wait until you see our next bird. It's just as white, but trades the ice for elegance, the tundra for dance. Meet Japan's symbol of grace and eternal love, the red-crowned crane. What bird could turn a frozen marsh into a stage, spreading its wings like silk fans and dancing with its mate beneath falling snow? That's the Japanese red-crowned crane, a living symbol of grace, fidelity, and love everlasting. Here's the stakes. Winter in northern Japan isn't kind. Blizzards, freezing rivers, and food scarcity test every creature's endurance. Without teamwork, strong bonds, and that incredible dance, the red-crowned crane wouldn't survive the harsh seasons or keep its fragile population alive. Picture the scene, the wetlands of Hokkaido in midwinter. Snowflakes drift through the air like confetti. Two cranes stand side by side, tall and radiant, their black and white feathers glowing in the soft light. Suddenly they bow, leap, and spread their wings in perfect unison, a performance of pure devotion. Their calls echo through the valley, a haunting duet that sounds both ancient and eternal. It's not just courtship, it's poetry in motion. Fun fact, these cranes mate for life, and their famous dance isn't just for romance. They perform it year-round to strengthen their bond and even teach it to their chicks. In Japanese culture, the red-crowned crane is a sacred symbol of luck and longevity, often appearing in art, folklore, and origami. Some believe folding 1,000 paper cranes can grant a wish or bring healing, a tradition born from this bird's grace. Another twist. While they look delicate, these cranes are remarkably tough. Standing nearly 5 feet tall with wingspans over 7 feet, they migrate across icy rivers and snowfields with elegance that defies the elements. So the Japanese red-crowned crane isn't just a bird. It's a moving masterpiece, proof that strength and beauty can live in perfect balance. And if you thought a snow-white dancer was breathtaking, wait until you meet our next bird. It lives high in the misty Andes, with a beak that looks painted by an artist and feathers that shimmer in mountain light. Introducing the plate-billed mountain toucan. What bird looks like it borrowed a painter's palette, glued it onto its beak, and then strutted off into the cloud forest? That's the plate-billed mountain toucan, one of the Andes' most exotic and eye-catching residents. Here's the stakes. Living high in the cloud forests of Ecuador and Colombia isn't easy. Food can be scarce, the weather unpredictable, and predators lurk in the canopy. Without a specialized beak and clever feeding habits, this toucan's rainbow-colored charm wouldn't keep it alive. Picture the scene. Morning mist curls through mossy branches. Suddenly, a loud croaking call echoes, and a toucan hops into view. Its bill, long, curved, and patterned with yellow, orange, and black plates, looks almost too heavy to carry. But with surprising grace, it reaches for a cluster of berries, flips one into the air, and swallows it whole. Around its neck, a splash of bright yellow glows against slate blue feathers, while its tail flashes crimson. It's not just a bird, it's a moving piece of art. Fun fact, that oversized beak isn't just for show. It works like a multi-tool, grabbing fruit, snatching insects, and even reaching into tree holes to raid nests. Scientists also believe the bill helps regulate heat, much like a toucan's built-in air conditioner. And despite its flashy appearance, the plate-billed mountain toucan is surprisingly stealthy, blending into the dense foliage when danger appears. Here's a twist. This toucan plays a vital role in its ecosystem. By swallowing fruits whole and flying off before digesting the seeds, it helps replant the forest, literally acting as a gardener of the Andes. Without birds like this, many plants would struggle to spread. So the plate-billed mountain toucan isn't just exotic, it's a forest caretaker disguised as a rainbow-beaked comedian. And if you thought a toucan with a designer bill was exotic, wait until you meet our next bird. It's massive, it's blue, and its beak looks like something out of a prehistoric movie, the legendary shoebill. What bird looks like it wandered out of the age of dinosaurs, wearing a giant wooden clog for a beak and glaring like it's plotting world domination? That's the shoebill, one of Africa's strangest and most exotic birds. Here's the stakes. Life in the swamps of East Africa is brutal. Crocodiles, hippos, and endless heat make every day a fight for survival. Without its oversized beak and patient hunting style, the shoebill wouldn't stand a chance in this watery battlefield. Picture the scene, a papyrus swamp in Uganda. The water is still, dragonflies hover, and then a shadow looms. Standing over 4 feet tall, the shoebill is motionless, eyes locked on the water. Minutes pass. Then in an instant, it strikes, lunging forward with that massive clog-shaped bill. Out comes a thrashing lungfish, snapped in half with bone-crunching power. The shoebill shakes its head, flicks off the slime, and gulps it down in one bite. Prehistoric? Absolutely. Fun fact, that huge beak isn't just for scaring birdwatchers. It's perfectly adapted for catching big, slippery prey, fish, frogs, even baby turtles. And unlike most storks, shoebills are masters of stillness. They can stand frozen for hours, earning them the nickname statue bird. When they do move, it's with startling speed. Here's a twist. Despite their fierce looks, shoebills actually make some of the weirdest sounds in the bird world. They perform bill-clattering displays, sounding like a machine gun going off in the swamp. Imagine a dinosaur crossed with a typewriter. That's a shoebill saying hello. So, the shoebill isn't just exotic, it's a living relic, a bird that looks like it stepped out of prehistory and never bothered to change. And if you thought a swamp-dwelling dinosaur bird was strange, wait until you hear the voice of our next species. It's a big black bird with a long, dangling throat wattle and a call that sounds like an out-of-tune chainsaw, the long-wattled umbrella bird. What bird looks like it's wearing a black umbrella on its head and dragging a feathered necktie almost as long as its body? Meet the long-wattled umbrella bird, one of the strangest and most exotic species of South America's cloud forests. Here's the stakes. In the misty forests of Ecuador and Colombia, showing off comes with risks. A dangling throat wattle may impress the ladies, but it also makes you clumsy and easy to spot. Without strong wings and careful display rituals, the umbrella bird's bizarre fashion statement would be a dangerous liability. Picture the scene, a foggy morning in the Andean foothills. You hear a low, booming call echoing through the forest, like the sound of a bass drum in the distance. Then out of the mist, a large black bird hops into view. Its crest droops forward like a tiny umbrella shading its eyes, and swinging from its chest is a feathery wattle nearly half a foot long. When the male calls, the wattle vibrates dramatically, turning his already weird display into a surreal performance. Fun fact, that strange wattle isn't just decoration, It actually amplifies the bird's booming voice. Males gather in leks, special display grounds where they compete to impress females with their deep, resonant calls and flapping waddles. Imagine a nightclub where the only music is bird bass drops. It's weird, but it works. Here's a twist. Despite their odd looks, long wattled umbrella birds are shy and rare. They spend most of their lives quietly feeding on fruit high in the canopy, playing an important role as seed dispersers for the forest. Their bizarre calls and displays may seem funny to us, but they're vital for keeping their population alive in these disappearing habitats. So the long-wattled umbrella bird isn't just exotic, it's living proof that in the bird world, strange often equals successful. And if you thought a bird with a swinging feather tie was bizarre, wait until you see our next one. It's giant, cobalt blue, and the largest parrot in the world, the magnificent Hyacinth Macaw. What bird looks like it was carved from sapphire, polished by sunlight, and armed with a beak that could crush a coconut? That's the Hyacinth Macaw, the largest parrot on Earth, and one of nature's most breathtaking works of art. Here's the stakes. In the vast wetlands and forests of South America, beauty alone doesn't keep you alive. Food can be scarce, and survival depends on strength and smarts. Without its powerful beak and sharp intelligence, this majestic blue giant wouldn't last long in the wild. Picture the scene. Sunrise over Brazil's Pantanal. The golden light spills across the marshes as a pair of deep blue parrots glide overhead. Their wings flash cobalt and indigo, a moving jewel against the morning sky. They land in a palm tree, climb effortlessly with hooked claws, and grab a palm nut. One bird clamps it in its massive jet-black beak. Crack. The shell splits like paper. Inside is breakfast, opened with the precision of a master craftsman. Fun fact, despite their size and strength, Hyacinth macaws are gentle, affectionate partners. They mate for life, often seen flying side by side or grooming each other tenderly, their golden eye rings glowing in the sunlight. And though they look like they could snap a branch in half, their voices are surprisingly soft, warm, nasal calls that sound almost conversational. It's like hearing a gentle giant whisper. Here's a twist. These stunning birds are endangered. Habitat loss and illegal pet trade have devastated their populations, leaving only a few thousand in the wild. Conservationists in Brazil are racing to protect their nesting trees and feeding grounds. Spotting one today feels like seeing living treasure. So the Hyacinth Macaw isn't just exotic, it's elegance, loyalty, and power wrapped in feathers of royal blue. A living symbol of strength and grace. And if you thought a parrot the size of an eagle was extraordinary, wait until you meet the final bird in our journey. Tiny, otherworldly, and performing dances straight out of science fiction. It's the mind-bending, alien beauty of the Wilson's bird of paradise. What bird looks like it was designed by an alien fashion designer? Electric blue head, emerald cape, crimson back, and two curly tail wires that look like neon light. That's the Wilson's bird of paradise, one of the most surreal, otherworldly creatures ever to take flight. Here's the stakes. Deep in the rainforests of Indonesia's islands, survival means standing out and hiding at the same time. For Wilson's bird of paradise, that means dazzling enough to win a mate, but clever enough to avoid predators. Without that perfect balance of showmanship and strategy, its species could vanish into myth. Picture the scene. Dawn breaks on Wagyu Island. Sunlight filters through the rainforest canopy like golden mist. On the forest floor, a tiny male bird clears a perfect stage, sweeping away leaves with his feet until only dark soil remains. Then, the show begins. He hops into the clearing, his feathers glowing like fire and jewels. He spreads his blue crown, twists his two wire-like tail feathers into spirals, and performs a dance that looks choreographed by nature itself. The female watches quietly from the shadows, deciding if this vibrant performer is worthy of her attention. Fun fact, that glowing blue crown on his head isn't feathers, it's bare skin that reflects light like polished glass. When the sun hits it, it glows electric blue. And those tail wires, they actually vibrate as he dances, catching light like moving threads of energy. It's no wonder scientists once thought this bird looked like it came from another planet. Another twist. Wilson's bird of paradise was so elusive that for centuries no one had ever seen one alive. It wasn't until modern explorers filmed its courtship dance that the world finally witnessed what might be the most dazzling display in the entire animal kingdom. So the Wilson's bird of paradise isn't just the finale, it's nature's masterpiece. Proof that life, in all its strangeness and beauty, can create something that feels truly magical. And that's where our journey ends. 30 exotic wonders from every corner of the planet. From the icy snowy owl to this tiny alien dancer, the world of birds never stops surprising us. Which one stole your heart? Tell me in the comments below, because nature's best stories always deserve an encore. And there you have it. 30 of the most exotic, jaw-dropping, and downright unbelievable birds on our planet. From the fiery throat of a tiny hummingbird to the sapphire armor of the Hyacinth Macaw. From the prehistoric glare of the shoebill to the emerald plumes of the resplendent Quetzal, each one reminds us just how wildly creative nature can be. Think about it. These birds aren't just beautiful, they're survivors. They've adapted to swamps, mountains, deserts, and jungles. Some risk it all with blazing colors. Others trade camouflage for spectacle. And yet, every single one plays a role, whether it's pollinating flowers, spreading seeds, or simply dazzling us with a reminder of what's worth protecting. Here's a fun thought. If you could wake up tomorrow and instantly spot one of these birds outside your window, which one would you choose? The clownish puffin, the shimmering bee-eater, or maybe the legendary Quetzal itself? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to know which bird stole your heart today. And hey, if you made it this far, you're officially part of the flock. So don't fly away just yet. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with someone who loves a little color and wonder in their life. Because here's the truth. The more we celebrate these incredible species, the more chances we have to keep them around for future generations. So let's keep exploring, keep learning, and keep protecting the wild beauty of our world. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and never stop looking up.